Alright, hello everyone. My Aquarium ProFlex Model 3 sump has finally arrived. Here it is. I'm getting ready to install it. The first stage has the two filter socks. The second stage will be my ReeferGil. And then the third stage will be where my return pump and skimmer will be located. The bottom of my stand, I placed a little bit of a foam padding just to help with absorbing vibration. The back of the tank, I started the emergency overflow plumbing. And then over here I have all the PVC fittings, and I have them separated, and they're separated by the stores that I purchased them from. That's the blue tape, and that's just so I can return the extra pieces because I know I'm going to have a lot. I have PVC cutters, sandpaper to prep the glue for the PVC fittings, primer and glue itself. So I'm going to go ahead and get started and plumb this thing up. Okay, the PVC piping is done. The plumbing is done for the tank. It really took me all day to do. I've never done PVC before, so it was quite of a challenge for me. But I did get it all done. I have not run any water through it yet. I'm letting the glue cure, and then I'll run some water, and hopefully I have no leaks, crossing my fingers. But here it is. The sump is, you can see it's off to the left here, and the reason I had to do that is because it was pretty tall sump, and I wouldn't have enough room to work in the back to put up power strips and lighting and all that good stuff. So I needed to offset it a little bit so I can have that room to work. But I think it's going to work out fine. Starting from the return, there's a return pump. It's a Mag 7, comes up to some PVC piping. The ball valve comes across to a hose, connects to some more PVC, a union there, a check valve to ensure that water doesn't flow back into the sump in case of a power outage, another union, and then goes up into the tank. And then the main return is right here, a gate valve for the Herbie method silenced overflow system, a union, comes down, another union, around and into the sump. And then you'll see a union in the back there. That's the emergency overflow, and we'll go back there and take a look at that. And there's the emergency overflow. That's the hole that I drilled on my own, and it goes straight down to where we just looked at. Here's a return here on top, some lock line that I put in. If you can see that, and then I have it split in a Y. I did goof up. I dry fitted everything. Everything was perfect. All the measurements were perfect. And then when I took it apart and started gluing things together, the emergency overflow PVC pipe came out to be too long. And what had happened is when I was setting the glue, that squeezed out on me. I didn't notice it until after. But you really, when you're doing this, make sure you hold down the PVC pieces when you're gluing them together, because it tends to squirt out if you don't. So at least hold them down for about 20 seconds, 30 seconds or so to ensure a proper fit. And what ended up happening with me is after I glued everything, realized I wasn't getting the alignment that I had when it was dry fitted. I had to remove this whole piece right here. That's why we use unions, so that we don't have to cut PVC pipe. But each of these unions are $6. I did manage to salvage a couple of them. This piece happened to be the bottom end, that piece happened to be the top end, so I took the opposite ends and made a new union with that. Other than that, it was simple. It's just very, very time consuming for me. Once I get the water running in there, we'll see how things are working, and I'll update you guys. Alright, so I'm in the process of filling up the tank with hose water to check for any leaks in the plumbing. I'll fill up the tank and stop it right when it gets right below the overflow. And then in the sump, I'll fill it up about 2 inches above the pump return. So we'll see what happens. Okay, the tank is filled right below the overflow there. I don't know if you can see, but my tank is perfectly level. And now I'm filling up the sump, and once that's filled up, we'll go ahead and turn it on and see what happens. Let's keep our fingers crossed. Okay, so what happened, I had to turn it off. What happened is this very last piece that connects directly to the return pump started shooting water up onto the back wall. So I gotta check that. Maybe I didn't put any Teflon tape on there and it's not tight enough. So I'll have to redo that real quick. Okay, so the back emergency overflow has an issue. We have a leak here. It's hard to tell where it's coming from. I'm guessing it's right underneath this the union there. I'm wondering if it was just not tight enough. But got a little bit of water spillage there. So I put this power strip up. What I'm going to end up doing after this experience is I'm actually going to bring this power strip way up here to make sure it's out of the way of any kind of leaks or potential disasters when I'm not home. And the return spit up some more water again. I don't know what's going on with that. I tightened everything down, put some Teflon on there. I don't know. So I'll be back at it again trying to fix it. Okay, so the plumbing is now leak free, but I do have some adjustments I have to make that I was hoping I didn't have to make initially. But let's go ahead and look over what the leaks were. Right here you'll see underneath the white PVC there's a gray Schedule 90 adapter that's attached directly to the pump. Well, what happened is I over tightened that nut. It hit the top of the pump, and what happened is instead of being straight, it started angling a little bit, and that's what was causing the leak on the pump. So all I had to do is back off of it a little bit, and now it's leak free there. The leak that was caused on the emergency overflow was just merely the union there was a little bit loose, so I just tightened it and that stopped that leak. So the leaks were pretty simple to fix, and I was pretty fortunate in that way. I want to show you how I connected the emergency overflow because this is actually an issue. The emergency overflow I connected with that T to the main overflow. That's the main overflow coming down here. The emergency overflow coming here, connecting, and then it goes down into the sump. Why this is an issue? Well, I wanted to create the Herbie method overflow system, and basically with the Herbie method overflow, you use the gate valve there to fine-tune the amount of air that's going into the water, and that will reduce the slurping and the sounds that are made up on top. We come up top here, I don't know if you can hear it, but no matter how much I fine-tune it, there's slurping. The reason for that is because I connected the emergency overflow, which is right here, to the main overflow, which is right down there, and the slurping you're hearing is actually coming out of the emergency overflow. It's allowing air to get into the main overflow, which defeats the whole purpose of the Herbie. So what I'm going to have to do is, instead of having the main overflow and the emergency overflow connect, I'm going to have to make them two independent pipes coming into the sump. The reason I connected them, and I thought I was being smart about it, was because I just wanted this one piece to go into the sump. I thought it'd be cleaner. So now I'm going to have to, unfortunately again, we're using unions. I'm going to take off the unions, run the emergency overflow, and I'll probably just dump it in here. Just run in here, angle it into the third stage. Since it's only an emergency overflow, it's only going to be used for emergencies. And then redo the main overflow so it's independent from the emergency, and hopefully that will fix the slurping sounds. The other thing I'm seeing, and I don't know if this is normal, that's all the water that's coming out of the return right there, kind of almost trickling out. So it's not very powerful. So what I'm going to also do is, instead of having this hose so long, I'm actually going to push the pump all the way to that side of the third stage, and then directly connect it to that fitting. I'll probably take this fitting off, this 90, to eliminate 190, and just use this fitting and slip it in there, and reduce the number of turns it has to make. And then the other thing is, I'm using these end portions, the flat ones, and I'll probably end up going with the circular ones to get a little bit more pressure out of it. So I'm going to go ahead and get started with that, and we'll come back and see what the results are. Okay, so I moved the pump closer to the back wall here. I put the pump on top of a black mouse pad like this, and then just connected it directly to the pipe that's coming down from the tank. The water flow is actually a lot better. You can see it moving pretty good. Just skimming the top of the water. I don't know what configuration I'm going to have it in once everything's done. Obviously I'll have power heads and all that stuff. And then I'll get to work on the emergency overflow and the main overflow and get those separated into two independent pipes. Alright, so the frustrations of plumbing for me is evident, as I have sprung yet another leak on the return pump. It's not as egregious as the first one, but I'm still losing pressure, obviously. That reducing bushing that's at the bottom, that schedule 80 that connects directly to the pump, might need to be completely replaced. So I'll be removing this pump yet again and figuring this thing out. Alright, we'll see. Alright, so for the second time I have fixed the leak coming out from the return pump. The bushing here, I replaced it with a new one. So far so good, it's holding. Only time will tell. The back of the tank was constructed with these two holes in the back there. And what I'm going to do with those holes, I'm going to cover it with this foam right here, and then I'm going to paint the foam with this acrylic semi-gloss black paint to reduce the amount of noise coming out from the back of the tank. And I'll leave room on top for circulation and to run any wiring out of the back of the stand. The piping is finally done. I emptied out the water from the tank and pushed it away from the wall. We're looking at the back of the tank here. Here's the emergency overflow coming out from the back of the tank and going into the sump area, the third stage of the sump, and it is now independent from the primary overflow that's coming from the bottom of the tank into the first chamber of the sump. Before we go around to the front, I wanted to show you the foam that my wife came up with. We cut out a piece of foam, velcroed it to the back of the tank so I could remove it if I need to get in there, and left a little space at the top for electrical and for airflow circulation. And the reason we put the foam here was to reduce the amount of noise coming out of the stand, and also to prevent dog hair from getting into the sump area. Go around to the front, and that's the front of the foam. The paint actually took a lot better here. It's a little hard to see, but you get the idea. And there is the emergency overflow coming into the third chamber of the pump, and that's only going to occur if I have an emergency or blockage in the primary overflow system. Then the emergency overflow will kick in to prevent my tank from overflowing. This is going to be part one of 2 videos. The next video will cover some learning points and go over some of the mistakes I made and what I did to correct them. So I would encourage you guys to watch the second part of the video. Thanks.